I'd like to call to order this regular board meeting for November 8th, 2017 of the Pullman School District Board of Directors. We'll begin, as we always do, with a flag salute. And could I ask you, Ms. Maxwell, to lead us in the, okay.
Stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Next is the approval of the agenda. Superintendent Maxwell, are there any changes to tonight's agenda?
There are no changes to tonight's agenda. I will, however, point out you should have received notification that a few last-minute items were added to the consent agenda. So, timeliness of contracts and paperwork. So, other than that,
I move approval of the agenda as presented.
I will second. It's been moved and seconded that we approve the agenda as presented this evening. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor? Aye. The agenda is approved. Next, we'll move on to reports, correspondence, and program, and we begin with the ASB report. And I'll invite you to the podium to introduce yourself.
Hi, my name is Madeline Maxwell. I'm the VHS ASB Executive Treasurer. So a couple of things ASB has been working on lately. Today was our last day for our Veteran Care Package Drive. So each second period class brought in items to send in care packages to our veterans, and then the winning class will receive donuts. So tomorrow we get to count all of those items and find out who's the winner. And then a couple of things ASB has coming up. We are working on a campaign that we call Week of Kindness. So most likely this is going to be a week, or the week we come back from Thanksgiving break. And what this is we're going to do something that encourages small acts of kindness every day. So Monday, ASB is going to greet students as they come to the doors in the morning. We're making a short video, kind of just to explain to each class what's going on for Week of Kindness. The leadership class is going to Bishop Place on the field trip. We're going to be showing a movie on Friday. It's kind of like a video type of a movie for our students, and we're going to have other things like inspirational post-it notes on the lockers, in addition to maybe we're talking about a chain link paper chain that goes around the side bridge that just has like nice words on it. And then we'll have some other things too. That's what the leadership class is working on right now. We also have the Polar Express Pajama Party coming up, so this will be the second year in a row that we're going to do this. We haven't picked out a date yet, but we're looking at the 9th of December, somewhere around there. It will be on a Saturday, we do not know that for sure. And this event is where we have kids from the elementary school come to the high school, and we watch them for a while and watch the Polar Express with them and do crafts with them. And then the idea is the parents can go out and do holiday shopping and things like that. And then other than that, we're just working on planning a few events in the future. We have the Ugly Sweater Dance coming up, and we're working on a suggestion box so that our student body can put suggestions and things they would like to bring up to the ASB. So that is it. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Thank you for coming.
Wow. Okay, ASB is up to quite a bit. Next, we'll move on to board reports. I'd like to begin down at the end with Director Lee.
Okay, Veterans Day Assembly I hear was fabulous. I missed it, was involved in something else, so couldn't do it. Of course, no school for Veterans Day, and that's on the 10th, which is Friday. No school Friday. And then lots of good sports things going on. We've got football in Battleground playing against Hawkinson, which I had never heard of. But anyway, there they are. It's supposed to be scheduled for 2. I'm sure Doug will probably be doing some streaming at this time.
I do not believe they're going to be able to stream this.
If not, at least our crack broadcast team of Evan Ellis and Chris Chandler will be there to broadcast it. It will be streamed, on our app, or you can hear it on one of our stations. I think it's 100.5. Oh, well, thank God somebody listens. Sorry, thank you, Carl. Save me.
In overtime.
Yeah, it was pretty exciting. And then Wednesday, November 15th is the Booster Club auction. Always a great time. School board has a basket or they'll have a basket. It's not quite together yet, but there's thoughts going, so that's a start. And that's at 5 o'clock at Banyan's on the Ridge, so it's always a good, fun time, so that's good. And then volleyball and girls swim are off to state, so good for them, and I think I've done that. My other report, of course, is I was at the WASDA Legislative Assembly, I guess, yeah. And I can't believe it, after 2 days of talking and fussing and meeting and discussing and prioritizing, they came to a one-page sheet of legislative priorities, which are basically under 3 categories: transitioning to the new funding model, which is always exciting and curious. And then there's investing in public school facilities, which we're still waiting on that one, and then supporting every student. So those are legislative priorities for our School Directors Association, and I have one for each of you so that you can memorize them and act on them and be good. And I think that's it. We've got our annual conference coming up, so we're going to miss the Booster Club auction because it will be in Bellevue at the annual conference, but always come back excited and learning new and exciting things there. So that's it. Lots for me today.
Yes. Thank you.
But I'm done now, so.
Okay, Director Everman.
Just a thank you from all of our veterans that the schools put on their Veterans Day assemblies. That was very, very patriotic. So I appreciate that. Thank you.
Director Johansson.
First of all, football. To give you an idea of how the master agreement works between the Washington Officials Association and the schools that are members of the WIA, we have a couple of officials going from the local area over to work at the umpire and headlines position that are honored to go there. However, the results of the master agreement are that overnight travel is not approved and mileage is capped at $100. So the local association is chipping in so that they don't have to go out, and no meals or anything that are covered. So anyway, it's an investment of them of 7 hours over and during the game and pre-game and so on and so forth. But they were, the 2 that are selected were honored to go. One's from Clarkston, to give you an idea of our diversity, and the other is a local Pullman resident, DJ Postal and Jim Neal from Clarkston are going. So that'll be represented and working similar mechanics because we've been getting everything standardized around the state through our observer program. The other is an obvious thank you to everybody that voted. I've contacted Nathan, who looks like will be joining the board in January. Offered and he's accepted an offer of some coffee meetings and so on, particularly when we're talking about fiscal items. Plan on myself still staying involved, as I was joking about, of already actually in the process that I haven't completed yet, trying to get on the boundary committee, which is going to be a really important benchmark for this district, as we haven't added a brand new school, an elementary school, or any brand new school, as I understand it, for about 42 years or something. How long ago was Sunnyside built before it was added onto? I think that was the first one. Franklin I don't count because we lived in Pioneer Center until we went to Franklin, so the boundaries stayed relatively the same. Anyway, it's been really an honor to serve on the board with all of you, and I look forward to staying involved.
Thank you. Director Kinzer.
Yeah, I just wanted to reiterate that it has been an honor and privilege to serve on the board. Amanda Tanner will be taking my position, obviously, so my best to her and the school district, and looking forward to seeing how the school district progresses in the years to come. Thank you.
Thank you. I feel a little verklempt about this, but I will say something more later, but you two will be serving out your terms, so through December, and we'll have time to finish this out, but thank you.
I want to go back just real quickly because it affects the board and actually goes to your question of what banners that I'm interested in continuing forward, and that is Mike Colbreeze contacted me, the director of the WIA, after the probable results were evident, and he encouraged me to continue to chair, at least for this was the conference, the IAC meeting, the Interscholastic Activities Committee, and during the conference, for the first time, there's going to be a special workshop there for what are the responsibilities, expanded responsibilities, and so on for WIA reps that are on each school board, and a video to be premiered eventually for all school boards to watch before they vote next June or whatever, or August, to be members of the WI. And it's been an effort that I've, at the school board level, have chaired statewide for 4 years since I was on the WI's Strategic Planning Committee. And the number one goal that was developed by that group of 32 that participated in that 3-weekend-long facilitated process was that school boards needed to be more directly involved in the mission of the WIA, particularly around the goal, which is the mission, which is all students being able to have access to safe, organized, accessible, school-sponsored activities, not just WIA-sponsored activities, but school-sponsored activities, because we know the proof is in the pudding that they pay off. That involvement pays off with students. And toward that goal of greater involvement, I would like to see eventually that the school district would budget so that all things such as the drama thing that I attended the other night was free because the taxpayers have already paid for it. And thus, it would be not a barrier for families of our kids that are participating to come and pay $10 admission or $10 admission to come to the football game and so on and so forth. I think that we should make those events that are already tax supported accessible to all regardless of income. And I don't believe that the rejoinder of, well, we have scholarships is sufficient, because there's a self-identification process of I'm poor when I go to qualify for a scholarship, and there's no such similar process for a parent to be able to say, well, I can't afford a ticket to come. And I think we ought to be able to budget for it, and Joe might attest to handling of the money and the ticket takers and all that kind of thing is a pain, and it's often, I think the most recent really bad, maybe it goes back 30 years, audit thing that we had was around improper checking tickets and the money coming in. No fraud or anything, but it was just improperly handled. So why not make it, and a student body card for every kid that's enrolled and properly progressing and not on discipline. They ought to have an activity card so they can participate in everything, regardless. And they shouldn't have to go to the foundation and ask for a scholarship. If the foundation wants to support that lost revenue so that it can be free, well, then that would be a really good goal for the foundation, or for a combination between the foundation and the boosters, so that we could all just come, because so much is added to those events when the crowd is there and the place is full. So that's my little soapbox about at least one area that I think that we ought to be going for in my absence, and I would appreciate it if the board carried on that quest when I'm not here.
Thank you.
Thank you, Carl. Thank you for all your service with the WIAA. I know it's been in your heart, and it will be a big loss to them as well as to us.
Well, they plan on somehow organizing it to keep me involved. That's what.
Good.
I don't know what, but we'll see.
Okay.
Anyway,
We'll move on to the superintendent's report.
Thank you. So I'll start with construction update, Camac Elementary School. They're out there every day working, whether it's rain, snow, or sun. The weather, though, has impacted our concrete pouring schedule currently, and we're hoping to get some break in weather and be able to continue pouring stem wall pillars and hopefully slab. They've started, the gym slab has been poured. They're hoping to do the common slab next and then work their way south. So we'll find out tomorrow. We have our actual construction meeting on Thursdays, so we'll find out tomorrow.
where's the warm-up
Progress. So.
through next Wednesday?
So things are moving along. The other, I'd like
Well,
to...
did they get in power, construction power? I know that was,
Temp Power was going in, and I don't know, Joe, have you heard if Temp Power's been actually activated?
I've not heard this being completed.
Yeah, I'm sure we'll find out tomorrow. But they are working on trying to get Temp Power, which we had to go underground, so. It has not been ideal digging weather lately, so we'll find out tomorrow whether Temp Power is in or not, so. In the meantime, they've been running off generators, so. I do want to just reiterate all the things that are going on, from sports to the play to ASB leadership to all the schools have a host, a variety of things that are all occurring. You mentioned the Veterans Day Assembly. Sunnyside Elementary has their Veterans Assembly tomorrow at 1:10 in the gym, if anyone's interested in attending. So also today, we did have an impromptu fire drill at Lincoln Middle School. We had a motor seize up on us, which created a smoke-like smell, which they quickly evacuated the building. Students did a great job. Fire department was there, did a great job. Our maintenance people were up, identified the issue, and we got the kids back in all within 20 minutes. So a little exciting start to the morning.
Oh, that's exciting, yeah,
But it was handled
And it
exceptionally well, so.
that's good.
Cameron also sent out a skyward message to families right away as soon as he could, so parents were notified of what happened, so. So I want to compliment our staff on the Pullman Fire Department. They did an outstanding job. Also, I'll mention a little bit about the elementary boundary process. We're beginning that process of overview of what that is going to look like, hopefully. I've been out doing presentations at PTAs, PTOs, soon-to-be boosters, and staff meetings, so I can squeeze them in either morning or afternoon. And what I'm basically doing is giving a very brief PowerPoint on a general overview of the proposed process. That's going to start this week with a thought exchange. We'll be going out with 2 questions to staff, parents, community. Will be advertised on our website, and that's to get 2 things. One, we'd like to hear what the criteria or guiding principles people would like the committee to consider. The second question would be, what questions do they have about the process? And that information then will go to the boundary chain or elementary boundary committee for consideration as they develop their work around that. So that should be launching. We've all just launched the committee member application tonight, and so that's gone out to staff, parents, again, community members, website, Facebook, Twitter, all the social media outlets that we typically use. So it'll be an application process. And late this evening, just before the school board meeting, we did have a conversation with a company that specializes in boundary committee support and boundary adjustments. And so they are putting together a couple of different proposals of how they might be able to help us. We've done some of the preliminary work, so that'll save us a lot of time and money. One of the things that we are interested in is a long-range enrollment forecast, which they specialize in. And I think that would be well worth our time
Absolutely.
and money to do that now, because I don't foresee a stoppage in the growth, and it'd be good to know where the projected growth will be. We also have Pete Dickinson from the city will be attending one of our committee meetings to give us an update from the city's perspective of what they have identified as future growth areas, so we can coordinate that with our study. So that's happening. There's a lot of work that goes into this, so it's a lot of things happening simultaneously, so I'm making sure that I don't miss anything. So presentations are ongoing this week. Next Monday night, I'll be at the LMS boosters, and in December, I'll be at the PHS boosters. That'll cover all the PTAs, PTOs, and boosters in the district, so they'll get that presentation. So we're really looking forward to getting this started, getting it moving. I've had really good feedback from both the staff meetings I presented at thus far and the PTA and PTOs from the parents that have been there. So things are moving. So thought exchange, committee applications. So stay tuned. It's going to be a lot of work and a lot of information. So we're getting that out. Next up, I'd like to introduce Megan Atani, who would like to share some valuable information with the board and our audience tonight.
So like Bob shared, I'm Megan Atani. I'm the Assistant Director of Special Services for Pullman. So it's such an honor to be in that position for Pullman. One of my great obligations is to serve our families and our students of kids with identified disabilities. So we know that to do that successfully, we've got to partner with families and have that ongoing collaboration. So one of those attempts to start that ongoing collaboration, I guess, as a bigger picture rather than individually with families just about their student is, as I've shared a handout with you guys, is a parent resource partnership. This is something really new for us. Our first meeting will be next week. I've met with some families, smile, that's here. I've met with a few families, and I've collaborated with a few other families outside direct meetings to get feedback from them on what they were hoping for and what they were looking for, and maybe this ongoing partnership. So our first meeting is actually just going to be 1 hour. It'll be for Pullman families only. We're going to go over some of those topics that were brought up in those discussions to get right to the meat. But at the end of that meeting, Jessie Armstrong, one of our current SLPs, is working with me on this project, and she's going to be giving a survey to all the families that are there. So we hope to get, again, that feedback from them and what they're hoping to discuss through this partnership. In ongoing meetings, it'll be a 2-hour activity. 1 hour will be directed at Pullman families, and hopefully the second hour we're hoping to open up to countywide, bigger picture, Colfax, Colton, our surrounding school districts. And my aim is to bring in resources from outside communities and how our families access those resources. So for example, someone from DDA on how to apply for Medicaid, how to apply for Social Security, how to access other, again, resources that are available for our families. Big topics around autism, for example, around disabilities. But again, just how do we access those, especially in a rural community? So really going to take our guidance from the families that attend. I'm also really excited to say that you can see on there, I asked for an RSVP, really so I can provide good food for everybody. But ultimately, 3 of the first people to RSVP were people that are in the school district already. So they're coming to be part of this collaborative partnership, which is really exciting to me, that they're ready and willing and hold that value around working together as a team. So just really proactive communication with you guys to let you know we're going to kick this off, we're going to get it started and kind of see where it heads for us as that positive collaboration. So really excited about it, looking forward to the feedback from families and again how we can move forward in a really positive way as a group, because ultimately we've always collaborated with families obviously on an individual level, but at the same time we need to come together around similar topics and share information. So just really wanted to come to this.
I might mention that it harkens back to when the funding for at least Birth to Three went through the Developmental Disabilities Board and was
Yes.
countywide, then federal and state law changed so that individual school districts. So it doesn't mean that we can't recapture some of the efficiencies and so on of the original model, and even could locally coordinate that funding district to district into a consortium and so on, if that's what develops, as I understand how the law changed, but.
Which
we
they're
had to
back in
move.
question around birth to 3. But yeah,
What?
they're questioning that again, and we'll see in the spring if they separate it again. We'll see around the birth to 3 versus 3 to 21 population. But on that note, Carl, I've spoken with Janelle Goebel, who works for DDA down in Colfax, and she's ready to talk with me more about that partnership and about how the county can support an activity like this. And that's why I was hoping for that second hour to be more of a county-wide thing, because we all know Pullman is a big seed in the county as far as the go-getters.
So the second hour will be 7 to 8?
Yeah.
That's not on.
Because this week we're just doing 6 to 7. So again, I'm going to kind of poll my audience and see if they'd rather have it be 5 to 7 versus 6 to 8.
Okay, so the first one is 6 to 7, and
The
then
first one is 6 to
subsequent
7.
ones.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Thank you for doing this. I think it's needed, so it's great. Well done.
Can you just remind me what an SLP is?
Yeah, speech and language pathologist.
Thank you.
I'm glad you asked that
I
question,
know
Allison. I'm
it's
looking at my
word, but-
agenda, and one of the first things we're going to talk about are acronyms. And I've created an acronym sheet. That's totally, I've actually learned more acronyms in this last week around students who are ELL learners, and everybody has their own. So that's one of the first things we're going to do. And I'm hoping to build up kind of a resource library for parents to also leave with. So like I said, I have an acronym sheet. I have folders. So hopefully we're going to leave with some resources as well.
The OSPI acronym sheet is like 10 pages long.
Yeah.
It's just- And they keep adding more.
Oh, it's endless.
Megan, this kind of goes along, I think, with it. Could you give the board just a brief update on the training that occurred this week with your consultant that you have brought in to
Yep.
work with the staff?
So I've contacted 2 consultants. I'm bringing in 2 different people. One was here this week at Franklin Elementary School, and really working with the staff on interactions with students, especially interactions with general education teachers, how those students come into the building and are welcomed into an inclusive setting. So she came in this week and did a day at Franklin and really looked at programming in that model, and again, looked at it holistically with all the staff. So that's really exciting, rather than just a consultant directed at maybe one student or one teacher in a classroom, kind of letting that work through at that specific building. And again, we have a second person that'll be joining Jefferson, and Sunnyside this year is working with the CLEAR project. So especially around behavior management and that topic, trying to center one consultant per school so that we're not sending a bunch of different messages. Sometimes we tend to give a really lot of ideas just because that's what's happening, and it's like, okay, which one do I pick? So kind of centering a consultant per school building to try to address some of those needs in the building as well.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Great.
Thank you.
Okay. Anything else for your superintendent's report?
That should cover it.
Okay. Roberta, anything? Okay. All right, very good. Next, we move on to the visitors section. This part of the agenda is for anyone wishing to speak before the board, either as an individual or a member of a group. Visitors addressing the board will go to the microphone and state their name and address prior to presenting their information. The board will listen and may offer clarification, but will not discuss the topic at this time. The board may consider moving the topic presented to a future meeting date as a discussion item. Please keep your comments civil and respectful and limit your remarks to 3 minutes. And our first visitor tonight is Phil Honeywell.
Phil Honeywell, 1215 Northwest Orion Drive, Pullman, Washington. I just wanted to say thanks to Dean and Carl for your efforts as a member of the community. Just to say thanks for your service. We appreciate it as a community, and it's been a huge impact for all of us in how the district has performed over the 10 years that I've lived here and everything, and we appreciate your efforts. And I was glad to hear easing a transition with Nathan and Amanda. So, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, next, Beth Ficklin. And Beth, I apologize, I'm terrible at resetting this timer, so,
Just guess.
yeah, just guess.
All right, I'm Beth Bickley. My name and address is on the board. I'd like to thank you guys for what we're doing with the Parent Resource Partnership. It's a really good first step. I think one of the goals that was in there was increasing parent collaboration. And one of the things that I keep bringing up is that we kind of tend to fall short on that. And not just in the group setting, but in the individual. I think I had a problem last week with an end date on a 504, which unfortunately 504s don't carry the same laws as IEPs, so you don't have the same kind of collaboration, that same kind of requirement that you actually involve the parents, but it is something that we should be involving our parents in their children's education and in identifying accommodations. And I'd really like to see more from the district. I think you guys are working on some trainings this week, so more from the district on actually really making some effort to invite parents to be a part of those team committee meetings when you have them. So I think one of the things that happens is you get a letter in the mail that says either come this time or reschedule, instead of a call to say, hey, is this a good time? And different schools have different ways of doing that. So I'd really like to see a more increase on that. Your district strategic plan goals, number 1, I'd really like to see if we could add something about special needs specifically, something about increasing parent and guardian participation in this and student advocacy when determining accommodations and educational goals for students with disabilities, so that we're trying to increase not only the parents being involved in the process, but increasingly adding students to that process, and especially by the time they get through high school, so that by the time they get to be a senior in high school, if they're planning on going on to college, that they're already good advocates for their own education, which they're going to need to be. There's a couple of ways you can measure it. These things are already out there. We already know if a parent has attended an IEP or 504 meeting, so we can look at seeing as we're trying to increase that, are we being successful by looking at, this year, are we having more parents attend those meetings? Because we definitely have some issues there. And then how many students are actually attending by grade level? Is that increasing? Are our students getting in there a little bit more? And to me, I know Allison has had some questions about, students kind of leaving the district. And I know I've had some parents, especially with special needs students, that will leave the district because they're not able to get the services they need in the district, and they're able to get a better education by homeschooling. So I'd like to see the district kind of provide an education instead of having some parents maybe feel like they have to leave the district to get an education. You can also improve graduation rates, because if the students aren't advocating and don't have good accommodations and they need them, you're going to have lower graduation rates. We also don't have vocational education in our high school. We don't have like welding or something like that, as far as I know. Do we? Yes. Okay, great. But increase vocational rehab so that students with disabilities have a skill that they can do. And then, like I said, increase college preparation. And also, I had a quick question about WASDA. Is this an organization that makes the law, or does it provide guidance on policy for the law?
It does, it provides guidance.
It provides, so it doesn't actually create the law.
It does lobby.
It does
a lot of
lobby.
lobbying, so.
But
yeah.
it doesn't provide, it doesn't actually write the law.
No, that's our.
Yeah, because I was looking for the policy 3210. I was looking for where that was written in the law, and I checked the ADA, I checked all the WACs on special needs, and I could not find that sentence anywhere. So I was just wondering how that got in there.
At the end of each of our policies are referenced all the RCWs and codes and stuff that are.
Yeah, that sentence we're trying to add, it's not in any of those. So I'm just kind of wondering, I'm guessing it's a policy suggestion.
You can contact WASDA and the policy committee. I mean, they have an attorney on staff that's what she does.
Okay.
He does. We have a new one, so.
Right.
Yeah.
And Jim and, not Jim, Carl and Dean, my mind is gone now. Thank you for all your help over the years. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Through DAC, I'm going to keep working with you, of course.
I'm waiting to see that, that advocacy group come over in the high school, because it seems like that's been a long time.
Okay.
Yeah.
Would any other visitors care to address the board at this time? It appears not.
I would like to add something because Beth reminded me of something.
Okay,
Before we move on.
okay.
So one of the things that was in my superintendent's folder that I forgot, actually were our graduation rates that just came out. So thanks for reminding me. So our four-year cohort was 94.8% graduation rate, and our fifth-year cohort adjusted rate, graduation rate was 97.5. So if you compare that to other districts across the state, you were right up at the top. So, so we're making progress.
And I would remind the audience that's probably watching and those that are here that that is a wonderful statistic. And it's also challenging to get to the last 2 or 3%, as Joe has given us examples before. Idaho has a non-mandatory attendance requirement after 16, and we've actually been charged with students that have been here as short as a week, enrolled here, and then went back to live with another aunt or whatever in Idaho, and we had no tools to get that student back in school and graduating, so that it ended up being a statistic on Pullman High School or the district for not graduating and so on. So any of the districts that are along the Idaho border, it offers an additional challenge besides all of the challenges that students just bring along with them living and learning and eventually graduating.
Okay. Next, we'll move on to the, did you say?
Yep, okay.
Okay, okay. We'll move on to the consent agenda. To expedite business at a board meeting, the board approves the use of a consent agenda, which includes items considered to be routine in nature. Any item which appears on the consent agenda may be removed from the consent agenda by a member of the board and voted on separately. The remaining items will be voted on by a single motion. Tonight's consent agenda consists of minutes, personnel report, professional and personal services report, warrants, overnight field trip requests, and ASB fundraisers. I would entertain a motion.
I will move that we approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded that we approve the consent agenda. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The consent agenda is approved. Next, we'll move on to our action items. The first action item this evening is donations from the Pullman Education Foundation presented by Superintendent Maxwell.
Thank you. So this was brought to the last board meeting, so I just want to follow up with a brief, I won't go into too much detail because I went in quite a bit last time, but just two things I wanted to bring. There are two items, both from the PEF. There's a Collaboration for Learning, Educational Achievement, and Resilience project, which we refer to as CLEAR, that's the acronym. They are gifting $10,000 as part of that pilot project in the district. The other that you do not need to take action on, but I wanted to make aware, is the fifth grade camp fund request for $8,856 to purchase additional housing and cots for our large fifth grade cohort group. So, but what we're asking for is approval for just the CLEAR, because you have to approve anything 10,000 or more, and obviously fifth grade camp is not 10,000. So, so we're asking for your approval for that.
There are 4 tents and 44 cots,
Yes.
so it's 11 people,
Yep, they're big tents.
I guess. Oh, geez. And do they have, like, the teachers and counselors stay in the tents with these kids?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, yeah.
Does anybody get any sleep?
Not much.
Okay, good. Well, that's what I thought I was to check.
I move
That's not too
approval-
much different than the norm for sleep if
Yeah.
you're in the cabins.
Yeah.
anyway.
I move approval of the Pullman Education Foundation donation.
I'll second it.
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded that we approve the donation of $10,000 from the Pullman Education Foundation to Pullman Schools for the CLEAR project. And then we'll just accept the other donation as well. Is there any further discussion of this? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you, that is approved. Next, we move on to policy 3110, qualification of attendance and
It's the
placement,
policy
presented by
lady.
Assistant Superintendent Roberta Kramer.
There's not too much on there, so I'll.
This
Well,
policy
yeah,
has
well-
not changed since I was at the last meeting.
Oops, hold on. There we go.
No, not in 2 weeks.
We're good.
Sorry about that.
That's the procedure, Bob.
Okay, there you go. What?
That's the procedure.
Okay. So, let me go back up.
I don't think there is a policy.
I don't think it's.
I think that's the wrong one, yeah. So, we don't have the correct one on there. That is,
It would be in the last board meeting's packet if they moved that out.
nervous about going out and coming back
It did
in.
not change at all.
No, it didn't change from our last
Let me see if I can
presentation.
pull up
No.
the summary for that, but I don't know if the summary detailed out those changes. Hold on. So,
Well, there were no changes.
you'll have to elaborate.
It was thoroughly discussed at our
was.
last meeting, so I think I'm pretty comfortable in moving that we approve policy 3110.
Second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded that we approve revisions to policy 3110, qualification of attendance and placement. Is there any further discussion? Okay. Yeah, I don't remember it being anything
No, it wasn't.
It wasn't.
No, it was just some addition.
minor, it
yes,
wasn't
some minor changes.
substantive, it was like
Updating
cleanup,
for the
yeah.
codes and,
Yeah.
Okay,
all the law changes.
Yeah.
okay, all right. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, those revisions are approved. And next, we'll keep you up there for policy 3114, home-based and off-campus students enrolled in district programs for ancillary services.
And this one as well hasn't changed from our previous board meeting.
And do you remember what the changes were?
Yeah, they're in
This
the,
one is here.
Yeah.
yeah, this one is in front of us. Yeah.
Okay, then what, it's not.
A few phrases
Okay.
is all that changed.
So it's,
No, it's in blue.
And I was kind of intrigued, Roberta, there are some changes in blue and some in green.
We're in the red on here, so.
Oh, okay.
Okay, well, some of that is operator error. That would be me.
Oh,
Okay.
okay. I didn't know.
that explains a
So let's
lot.
just be accurate in that. It's operator error on strike through and underline and changing new color. So it means nothing different. Anything that might come from me that has different colors, it's only for the rainbow effect.
Okay. So it wasn't like first the WASDA changes and then
No.
a few more. These are all
No.
just the WASDA.
They're all the WASDA changes. If there's anything that isn't a WASDA change, I would let you know that.
Okay.
I move approval of policy 3114, home-based and off-campus student enrolls
I'll second it.
district programs.
All right. It's been moved and seconded that we approve revisions to policy 3114, home-based and off-campus students enrolled in district programs for ancillary services. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Is anyone opposed? Okay, those revisions are approved. Next, we have policy 3120, enrollment.
This one too has not changed from the last board meeting.
Okay. Any questions about this?
No.
Okay.
I will move that we approve policy 3120, enrollment and attendance records.
I'll second that one too.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve revisions to policy 3120 enrollment. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Is anyone opposed? Okay, those revisions are approved.
Non-discrimination.
And next we have policy 3210, non-discrimination. This is one, as we discussed, we don't even have any discretion over the statement.
No, it is what,
No, yeah.
what we're required to do.
Yeah,
And it's this one change right here.
yeah.
I have a question that has to do with all policies, and maybe Shannon can answer it. The WAC references at the bottom, at least on my screen, appear to be hot links. And since they somewhat represent, when you click on them, it doesn't take you to the WAC, but it wants you to, at least me, to call that phone number, which is not an accurate phone number because it doesn't have the fourth digit after the prefix.
You're on a tablet.
Calling an iPhone or something.
Yeah, it's because your tablet is trying to consider that to be a phone number.
So that's how it's
It's a weird
displayed.
phone and tablet for, yeah.
Okay, so normally in everyone else's, it's not a hot link to that WAC. You have to go through Access,
There's no hot link there.
Washington Access or whatever. Okay.
It's those Apple products that will,
What?
it's the Apple products that will do it to you. Just
Yep.
stick to the beat.
All right, is there any
I
further?
move approval of policy 3210, non-discrimination.
Seconded?
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded that we approve slight revisions to policy 3210, non-discrimination. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Is anyone opposed? All right, that also passes unanimously. And policy 4218, language access plan.
Oh, there it is.
In addition, this one has not changed since the last board meeting.
That's good.
Okay. So this one is just adding,
Yeah, it was
References.
purely
It's just purely
the references,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yes.
okay,
And we had already shared the update to the procedure
yeah,
in a meeting prior.
yeah.
I move approval of policy 4218, language access plan,
I will
with the
second.
revisions.
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded that we approve revisions to policy 4218, language access plan. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Is anyone opposed? All right, those revisions also pass unanimously. Next, policy 3141,
Thank you.
non-resident students, this presented by Superintendent Maxwell.
Thank you. So we'll give Roberta a rest. So policy 3141 has some, quite a variety of changes, and so I tried to encapsulate that in my summary here, so I'll kind of go off of that. So the first thing is this policy has been amended to reflect the October 2015 WASDA sample policy update to align more closely with RCW 28A 225.225, the statute controlling applications for enrollment from non-resident students, students receiving home-based instruction, and and children of school employees. So one of the changes, the main change is using the word equally, and so the RCW directs districts to consider equally all applications received and adopt a policy establishing rational, fair, and equitable standards for acceptance and rejection of applications. The cap or quota, which we had previously in our existing policy seemed arbitrary and too variable for a district policy, and that's been removed. It has been struck in favor of whether the acceptance of a non-resident student will result in the district experiencing significant financial hardship. Also eliminated from the former policy were two other standards for determining acceptance. One, whether the student's attendance in a district is likely to create a risk to the health or safety of students or staff. And two, whether the district has already accepted as many non-residents for the school year as permitted by this policy. The former, again, was so vague that it seemed to fall short of the rational, fair, and equitable standard in statute. The updated policy now includes a section on enrollment and of non-resident children for full-time employees. Also noteworthy is new language regarding readmission of expelled or suspended students following the statutory requirement of the same RCW. That a district policy allowing readmission and required re-engagement procedures must be the same for both resident and non-resident students. So quite a mouthful. Some pretty significant work on this. I'll pull that up so you can see this. So you can see this has been, and there are no changes from our last discussion on this. This is one that's been, we've worked through quite heavily. I do expect this one to probably come back in the future, given that there are a whole host of new discipline rules and regulations on the horizon. So the comment period for that is ending Monday. So we will be submitting our recommendations for consideration for rules, but just giving you forewarning that this will probably come back in the future.
I have a couple of questions and comment. First, was the comment period and triggered by the legislature, then to us, OSBI, due to changes in the law? Okay, I assume so.
Yeah.
I have an example that I remember that the district experienced, and that was we had a student that the least restrictive environment that the student could survive in was out-of-state care throughout the school year. But with school choice, would that be an example of where it happened to be a student, a resident of Pullman, of our district? But had that person, that student, been wanting to transfer to Pullman from, say, Colfax, that would be an example. In order for us to handle the expenses, we applied to that special fund, and which is statewide and underfunded for extraordinary costs.
Safety net.
Right, safety net. And we were able to receive funding from that. But if we hadn't been successful, would it have been our responsibility or the sending district for that actually had the parents and resident be the ones that would make the safety net application and then find out that it wasn't a significant cost because we got the safety net, or would we just reject the student out of hand because of those extraordinary costs?
There's a couple different processes. So one, we would take a look at what typically that would involve a student with special needs and special programming requirements. So one, we would check to see, do we have the ability to offer the special requirements? So that's one consideration. Sometimes districts will approach us because they may not have the capacity, and they may do an inter-district agreement to accept a student on a year-by-year basis. If the student was accepted by the Pullman School District and was a high-cost student, that we would apply for safety net funds. Whether or not they're from another district but they're receiving educational programming, we're responsible for that education programming. So if that safety net did not pass compliance, the Pullman School District would be on the hook for paying for that.
Right.
Yeah.
The further question I have about that is the idea that these are on, the acceptance are on a year-to-year basis, because in this case, the student-only behaviors became such that we weren't able to handle them in the classroom, and if one year we'd accepted one and it wasn't an extraordinary cost and we could meet the students' needs, then they don't actually live in the district. The new parameters for we weren't able to serve and the extraordinary cost then arose, that would be sufficient to send that student back to their home district when we made that decision.
It might be.
Because it doesn't carry over, okay.
All choice students are 1 year only.
These are somewhat hypothetical, but they're very close to what's actually happened.
Every out-of-district
To the
student
district.
has to reapply.
Because we have a tendency for the smaller schools around us to be a recipient of requests for transfer.
Yes.
And again, I would remind those out there that those students come when we accept them and we want to have them succeed and do well, but they don't come with their bond money and so on. They only come with their FTE funding.
You only come with state allocation money, not
Right.
local money. Correct.
And not the supplemental money that it takes from local levies to fully meet the
Correct.
needs.
Yes.
So this is, I'm just trying to highlight that this is a really important policy and that it's going to be changing, is going to be something to track over time in the new budget constraints that we have coming to us.
Yep.
We may not be able to subsidize students with special needs the way we've been able to in the past for the regional rural schools.
And that's why I wanted to bring your attention and try to summarize it as best I could in the summary, so, because it is a pretty complex policy.
I think,
And it
in my
aligns
experience,
with-
it's one of the most complex that we've got to deal with as a board.
Yeah.
Okay.
Other questions?
All right, I will move that we approve policy 3141, non-resident students.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded that we approve revisions to policy 31, extensive revisions to policy 3141, non-resident students. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, those revisions are approved.
Thank you.
And we'll finish our action items tonight with policy 6580, continuity of operations, presented by Director of Operations Joe Thornton.
By the way, I just wanted to let everyone know, Susan, it's never too early to sign up to be a counselor chaperone at fifth grade camp. Never too early.
Thank you, thank you.
And we'll even reserve one of the new cots for you.
Thank you, Joe.
The development of a,
Brand new.
I can
the
put it in.
development of a continuity of operations plan is a new WASDA policy that they're recommending that we adopt, and that's so that we have a plan in place in the event of a catastrophic event that would cause us to have to close schools for an extended period of time, similar to what we saw in Houston, South Florida, Puerto Rico, Santa Rosa, Napa, those areas. So this is just telling us to develop a plan.
Seems like a good idea.
Great idea.
So once we pass this policy, you've got a plan ready to go?
I gotta pull together a bunch of names and phone numbers on it, but kind of, yes.
Kind of, sort of.
Yeah,
Good idea.
we'll see on paper.
I move approval of policy 6580, continuity of operations.
I'll second it.
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded that we approve policy 6580, continuity of operations plan. Any further discussion?
I assume that it's coordinated with FEMA plans that
Coordinated with
exist at the county
FEMA,
level?
coordinated with county services, state services, absolutely. Because if this happens to a school district, we're not on our own
Yeah.
in terms of trying to recover from that.
I used to attend the county meetings. So.
Okay.
because we had buses at the Council on Aging.
Any further discussion? All right, hearing.
At what point do you figure that the final document with all those names and phone numbers will be completed?
I'm going to anticipate pretty shortly. I'd like to tell you I could get it done by the end of Thanksgiving break, but I'm going to say realistically, probably by the end of Christmas break, winter break.
Okay.
Winter break.
Because I'd like to take a peek at that
Yeah.
one, so.
Yep, absolutely.
The county, of course, has been working on those type plans for quite some time. As a matter of fact, we had an exercise with Washington State University a year ago, and it's pretty involved and detailed, and
Yeah.
it's an interesting project, and I'm glad to see that we're getting our ducks in a row on this one.
And we recently received a document from the county asking us to participate in some regional emergency planning. And if we're going to participate, they needed a commitment that we do it. So we committed to having a staff member, that would be me, participate in those exercises.
Certainly, school district facilities could play an important part in housing people or something like that.
Absolutely, as would be buses, if need be.
Right.
Transportation.
Yep.
Sounds like there might be some interest, maybe at a future work session as that comes together, just let us know
Yep.
where it is.
Yep, absolutely.
Okay. All right, is there any further discussion? Okay, hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Also passes unanimously.
Thank you, Joe.
Yes, thank you. Next, we'll move on to discussion items, beginning tonight with policy 3122, excused and unexcused absences, presented by Assistant Superintendent Roberta Kramer.
This policy was recently before the board, but we're bringing back again so that it reflects the new rules and regulations from OSPI, and it concerns, there's one point where, it's down further, Bob.
Right here, the two
Yes.
versus three.
From 2 to 3, and while that might not seem important, it is to ensure that our schools are following the rules as they're written, so that when we get to court on particular students, we've followed the procedures as they were developed by the state. And so that's why we want to make that change. While oftentimes kiddos that are struggling with attendance, we've already had conferences perhaps, but this just lays it out a little bit clearer and also aligns with what law is. And that's a change. It used to be 2 days, and it recently changed to 3.
The new truancy?
Yeah, with the Community Truancy Board and all of those pieces, there have been some changes, and this was one of them.
Where are we with the Community Truancy Board?
We have a Community Truancy Board, and we would meet if we had kiddos that needed it, but so far, we haven't.
Good.
Let's never meet.
Yeah, that's what our hope is. But we have a couple that, in all likelihood, we may need to come together in December.
Okay.
Yeah, but the efforts that the high school and the middle school in particular, where they deal with more unexcused absence, their efforts need to be commended, because they've just done a great job here at the high school. Ray Courier and Justin Polstad have revised their process, have really looked at it differently, and we're able to address many of the issues and concerns quickly. We do have some students that had been under the previous law, and so that BECA process is different for them than it is for students that would be new to the process. And so we have some kiddos that have been in contempt of the court order, and so they'll go before the judge, I believe, next week.
Yeah, Cameron had mentioned going to court. Okay.
Yeah. So kiddos that were under it from last year, they may have already made an appearance. And then at the middle school, both Cameron and Tammy are working very closely with kiddos and families. And today, Tammy was talking to me, and I got an email from her the end of the day about, one kiddo he's just really struggling. And, but all of the things that they've put in place and things that work today, and she was very excited, so.
What can the courts do? I mean, what is,
Well-
going to court, what is the result then?
The result, it can be as much as a fine, or it can be and then that's what the family is impacted by. In my history, I've never had that happen. I've had parents that have been ordered to have their kiddos go to school, or the kiddo goes to juvenile, and we have that happen. Yeah, so they'll go spend a weekend, and certainly we, part of our process is to truly understand the why, and more than what is it that might help you, or what is it that's getting in the way, trying to really go much deeper, and that's a requirement under the new law as well. And so we've been working through all of those pieces with kids.
So the committee was formed and trained, and
Yeah, the training isn't the same that it was originally written. They rewrote the expectations for that. So we have to have one member of the committee that's trained, but there are multiple of us that have been trained. And so, yes, but we have formed the committee. So we'll just, it's a great problem to not have, yeah.
So there are community members on this hypothetical
Yeah.
committee, and they're just standing ready to assist if
Yeah.
needed.
Yes, when we need to go.
Any other questions about policy 3122-ish? Okay. Thank you.
thank you.
Next, we'll call up again our Director of Operations, Joe Thornton, for Resolution 171805, Declaration of Surplus Property.
So one of the ways we need to start dealing with the fact that we don't have a large enough maintenance shop is to make sure we do surplus sales more frequently. It's really easy to let the stuff pile up. But John Arano, the maintenance supervisor, and I are committed to doing them more frequently. It's cumbersome to do a surplus sale. I need to do 2 ads in the paper for schools and municipalities, and then let them come and look at it. They never do. 2 ads in the paper for the community, and then, so it's about a 1 month from tonight. And by the way, if you're so willing, I'd love for you to move this to an action item tonight, but it'll be a month between tomorrow and when we can actually get rid of stuff. Will be a month. So, but we just need to do it more frequently. And this is stuff that we accumulated because people moved into their classrooms, or new people moved into classrooms and they rearranged stuff, or we're also doing a better job of not letting schools stockpile stuff there. What's that stuff? Oh, stuff I need to get rid of. We'll send the truck. So that's what this stuff is, because we did a surplus sale this summer.
So this one is, I pulled the resolution out, desk cabinets, appliances, student desks, a piano, an organ?
There's 1 organ and 3 pianos.
Wow,
Yes.
what kind of shape are these?
There's two uprights that are not in great shape. The other piano is actually a grand. It was the old Chickering, which I've heard Andy Milkey refer to it as a Chickering piano. I personally don't know what that is. If somebody knows that, I wish they could tell me. I think it's a brand. It's pretty beat up.
Yeah, I would imagine.
I'm gonna ask the music teachers if that would be worth keeping and putting at Kemiak. The problem with the grand is it takes up a lot of floor space. I'm going to hypothesize that maybe the new music teacher at Kamiak might just want to have a keyboard, maybe, because they're just much more portable. So we will not necessarily be getting rid of that if one of the music teachers says it's worth keeping. They're just cumbersome. So.
Yes, they are.
Madam Chairman, I would move Resolution 171805 to declaration of surplus property to an action item this evening.
I'll second that.
All right, it's been moved and seconded that we move Resolution 171805 to an action item. Is there any discussion of that motion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, Resolution 171805 is now an action item.
I will move that we approve Resolution 171805 the declaration of surplus property.
Second?
It's been moved and seconded that we approve Resolution 17-1805, Declaration of Surplus Property. Is there a resolution to sign? Oh, you have it? Oh, okay.
It's dated.
Susan snags them
Yeah, so we don't
in
have to pass them
anticipation that
down.
we'll be passing them down later.
Okay. So it's been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion of the resolution?
No, I have a question. Is this the correct number? Is it resolution? Okay. 17-1805, Shannon?
Yes.
Okay, good. Well, the motion is for 16-17-11, so it wasn't updated, I guess, in the executive summary. Yeah,
No.
so I was just questioning. Okay.
The only thing I would say is, with a surplus sale, do you just put a price tag on something and then the first person to grab it gets it, or how?
It's typically people come in and, we'll have an idea of what things are worth
Yeah.
generally, but they typically will come in and make us an offer. And then we'll either accept that offer or make them a counter offer.
So it's an offer you can refuse then?
I would say
Yeah.
with an item as large as a grand piano, it would make sense to either pay for an appraisal or advertise it specifically in some way, so that somebody doesn't walk away with
Yes.
it for $50 or
Yeah.
whatever.
We'll do that, yeah. And I will guess with the piano, we might have some schools interested to come look at that. And that would be my preference,
Yeah,
that ends up in the
absolutely.
school. And by the way, this was in the old high school, there was a grand piano down in the choir room, which is monstrous. And then there was the grand piano up on the stage. The grand piano on the stage was purchased by Boosters probably 8 to 10 years ago for $15,000. It was a surplus piano from the WSU music department. That is still here. That's on stage. When Andy Milkey and Catherine Colville moved in the music rooms here, they said, we don't want that old grand piano because we don't want it to take up that much room. Andy, in fact, for his choir class in his classroom, typically uses a keyboard. But we'll do that. We'll get some appraisals so we have an idea of what the value of it is. And part of the challenge is for people to look at it is it's not set up now because it was moved by professional movers, so it's wrapped up in plastic on it, in blankets on its side. It's not on the stand.
The person who tunes the performance grand piano could probably tell you what
Okay.
this one is worth.
Thank you.
That's Mr. Paul. I don't-
Maybe.
Yep.
Okay. All right, so it's been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the resolution passes unanimously, and we'll get Director Weed started on the signatures down there. Thank you. Next, we have Policy 6220, bid requirements, presented again by our Director of Operations.
So this is some language changes that are recommended by WASDA that we incorporate. A lot of it is just some organizational stuff. This previously was a very cumbersome policy to read, but it does a nice job of breaking things out into furniture, supplies, and equipment, rejection of bids, interlocal act. So it's a lot of organization. In addition, it does specify at the beginning, the board recognizes the importance of, it adds to that public works as the requirements of complying with state and federal laws governing purchasing. The part that's added is now also and public works. It adds a specific reference to RCW 28A 400-322, which is specifically the RCW referencing crimes against children. It adds some language related to Interlocal Cooperation Act and referencing the Interlocal Cooperation Act, which is Chapter 39.34 of the RCW. So it makes reference to that in terms of our purchasing ability. And the last thing it does is it changes for use of state funds for improvements or repairs. it changes that limit from 75,000 to 100,000, and that is for services, not for items, but for services. And that's a recognition that as prices have gone up, $75,000 limit on purchasing a contracted services is pretty low. Any questions?
No, these seem like
Right.
good revisions.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. It appears we have come to the end of our discussion items this evening. There are some informational items in there. And then next, if there are no objections, we will move into an executive session for the purpose of discussing property and potential litigation. How long will the executive session take?
I would estimate 30 minutes.
Okay, so it is 7:45 right now, so the board will recess into an executive or closed session. It will take 30 minutes, so should be done at about 8:15. No action will be taken, and after that, we will reconvene and adjourn the meeting.
What are we going to do without our parliamentarian?
Yeah, I don't know.
You'll do quite well.